Have you ever had that nagging thought, that fear that a whole lifetime of trying, of believing, of doing your best could just get wiped out, all of it gone in one single final moment of weakness? It's a heavy question, and believe me, it's one that a lot of people of faith have really struggled with.
Welcome to Wisdom Time. Today, we're going to dive deep and get to the bottom of that exact fear.
So let's just tackle it head on. Is it true? Can a whole life's worth of faith be completely nullified in your last breath? This idea that your entire existence boils down to a single pass-fail test at the very end? I mean, wow, that can cause a ton of anxiety. But what if I told you that this entire fear is built on a massive misunderstanding? Yeah, according to the source material we're looking at, this whole concept comes from a teaching that's been pulled way, way out of its original context. So let's clear the air, get rid of that anxiety, and find out what's really going on.
You see, the real purpose of this teaching wasn't to make us terrified of the last second of our lives. No, it was actually a warning about something way more sneaky, something that can creep in over decades, the illusion that our faith is guaranteed.
The real threat isn't some dramatic last-minute failure. It's the slow, quiet rot that comes from complacency. The source uses a fantastic analogy here. Imagine someone who's just blessed with amazing health. They start taking it for granted, right? They think, hey, I'm healthy, I'll always be healthy. So they stop working out, they start eating junk, and over time, that incredible health they thought was a sure thing just fades away. And check out how this applies the exact same idea to a relationship. When people are courting, they're so attentive, so caring. But what happens after the wedding if one person starts to feel guaranteed? Well, the effort can just stop. The bond isn't nurtured anymore. Complacency creeps in, then neglect, and the relationship starts to fall apart. It's the same principle, he argues, in our spiritual lives. And this brings us right to the heart of the matter, spiritual complacency. It's this dangerous belief that our faith is all locked in, that it's a done deal. And that's what causes us to stop doing the very things that keep it alive and vibrant. The reflection, the good deeds, the conscious effort. This is the true danger the teaching was trying to warn us all about. Okay, so we've identified spiritual complacency as the real enemy here. The big question is, how did a warning about that get so twisted into a fear about our final breath? Now, before we get into the detective work, this is a great time to say, if you're finding this helpful, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our video, and definitely hit that notification bell. All right, let's investigate.
So, how did this happen? How did a warning against taking faith for granted become a source of fear? Well, it all boils down to one specific saying that was completely stripped of its original meaning. Let's put on our detective hats for a second.
And here it is. This is the phrase. When you hear this all by itself, one is judged by the state in which they die, it seems to confirm our worst fears, doesn't it? If you just read it like that, it's no wonder people started focusing so intensely on that single final moment. It sounds like the ultimate final exam.
But here's the golden rule, the most important question we have to ask. What was the original conversation? What was the question that led to this answer? Because, an answer without its question is only ever half the story. Context is absolutely everything. And boom, here's the context. It changes everything. The original question wasn't about a steady, lifelong believer at all. It was a very specific question about someone who was constantly in and out of the faith, someone who kept leaving and coming back. The prophet's answer was a specific ruling for that specific fluctuating person. The huge misunderstanding happened when people took that very niche answer and started applying it as a universal rule for absolutely everyone, which was never ever the intention. And this misunderstanding created a massive cultural ripple effect. It led to this immense pressure, this focus on making sure your very last words were the declaration of faith, the kalime tefid, almost like it was a magic password or a final trump card to play at the end. But here's where it gets really fascinating. If you do a quick historical reality check, you find something that completely challenges that idea. The prophet himself, the first 4 caliphs after him, and the vast majority of the early companions whose final moments were recorded, their last words were not the declaration of faith. This shows us pretty clearly that their understanding of what mattered at the end was very different from the culture of fear that came later. Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about the correct understanding. If faith isn't this fragile thing that can shatter at the last second, then what is it? Well, the source material is very clear. It's a process. It's a journey. Faith, or Iman, isn't an on-off switch you can accidentally bump on your way out. It's a deep conviction. Think of it like a massive tree. You don't get a strong oak tree overnight. It has to be planted, it has to be watered, it needs sunlight, it needs to be nurtured over a long, long time to grow deep, unshakable roots. It's the same with faith. It's built through continuous effort, action, and reflection.
There's this incredible verse in the Quran that seems kind of strange at first. It says, "O you who believe, believe." You might think, wait, why tell people who already believe to believe? But the interpretation is so beautiful. It's a call for constant renewal. It's saying keep at it, maintain your faith, strengthen it, live it, spread it, throughout your entire life, every single day. Believing is an active verb, not a one-time thing you achieve. And this is the big reveal. When those early teachers used a phrase like "at the last breath," they weren't being literal. It was a figure of speech. It meant sometime in the future. The warning was simple. If you get complacent now, you could lose your faith down the road. It was never about a literal single-breath final exam.
So what's the bottom line here? Let's bring all these pieces together and talk about the true lesson behind this lifelong journey of faith.
So if you take anything away from this, let it be these points. First, faith is a marathon, not a frantic sprint at the finish line. Second, the real danger is that slow creep of complacency, not one moment of weakness. Third, a lifetime of sincere effort and good intention is what truly counts, not one isolated instant. And finally, this is just a huge reminder to always, always try to find the original context of what we're taught. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to live in constant fear of the end. The real goal is to live with a healthy, active concern for our faith right now, today, and tomorrow. It's about engagement, not anxiety. It's about tending to that tree of faith our whole lives, so that when the time comes, its roots are deep and strong. And that leaves us with a final thought to really chew on. If a concept this fundamental could be so widely misunderstood for so long, what other deeply held ideas have we maybe accepted from tradition without ever stopping to ask where they really came from? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us.